Are you ready now?
Sure.
All right, what's our intro?
Let's get ready.
Okay, give me that intro. Welcome to Faith-Filled Nerds, where two happily married nerds explore Christian symbolism, iconography, and theology within various fandoms.
Our goal is to pit them against the source and see how accurate or inaccurate they are.
I'm John Mark.
And I'm Michelle, and we're here to explore Dreamworks Pictures' The Prince of Egypt.
I hadn't seen this movie. I didn't realize how long ago it had been since I'd seen this movie.
It's been like 7-8 years.
And I saw it at the premiere, and
I saw it in theaters.
yeah.
I saw it in premiere.
I forgot. This was back when Dreamworks Pictures was flexing on that animation.
I know. It's too bad their stuff didn't keep up because like they did Sinbad.
Yeah.
And Road to El Dorado. Which I love. I know you don't like, but I love it.
Actually, Road to El Dorado had a bit of a stink about it because that one, the female character, I can't remember her name, that was in there.
She's so sexualized.
Yeah.
Oh, but she's also like so sassy. I like her.
Yeah, it was.
She is very sexualized.
It caused a bit of a kerfuffle.
Yeah, she's pretty. Yeah. So.
No, we're talking about The Prince of Egypt, and this was.
When did this come out?
I was still in. It had to have been like 98, 90.
No, it's not 90s. It's the 2000 film. You keep saying 90s like 90s was 10 years ago. It's 20 years ago, buddy. 30 years ago. 90s was 30 years ago.
No.
Stop acting like it's like this era that happened not that long ago. It's been a while. I'm opening. All right.
Yes. Vindication.
1998?
Yes.
I really thought it came out in 2000s because it was like one of those 2000 movies.
No, 98. I knew. The reason why I thought it was 98 is because I saw that movie when we were still living in Raytown, and that was between 98 and 99.
Okay.
Yes, though. All right, so...
Budget, $70 million. Box office, $218 million. So yeah, it made it back.
Yeah, it was a great movie.
Like 4 times.
I know that a lot of people were kind of nervous when this came out because this is like the first time a secular
dude. I didn't know how many
company.
People, I didn't like recognize what a star-studded cast they had.
Oh,
like
yeah.
90 star-studded cast.
Oh yeah, you had Patrick.
You have Val Kilmer, Ralph Fiennes, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sandra Bullock, Jeff Goldblum, Danny Glover, Patrick Stewart, Helen Mirren, Steve Martin, and Martin Short.
Okay, so Jeff Goldblum played Aaron. And the point that you pointed that out to me...
You couldn't unhear it?
I couldn't unhear it.
I could, because every time we paused it would tell us who the cast was.
Yeah.
And it's just like Jeff Goldblum is Aaron. And I'm like, that makes sense because there's this whole scene where he's like, yeah, like, it was just like such a Jeff Goldblum scene.
Not only that is I stopped seeing Aaron, the brother. He
looked kind of like him, didn't he?
Yeah, Aaron.
Why did they do that? I don't know.
It was bad. I couldn't.
So, The Prince of Egypt is the story of Moses.
Yep.
And if you haven't seen it, it is probably one of the best animated, like, just animation, thematically, music.
It's gorgeous.
The soundtrack, everything. It's so pretty. It's such a beautiful movie.
Oh, and let's talk about the soundtrack.
The music and the soundtrack all together. It's... like, the songs, like the only song that people didn't like that people thought stood out too much was Playing with the Big Boys Now.
The bad guy song?
Because it kind of felt different from the other songs. But I love that song because I love bad guy songs. So, and those two, the priests were great. I know they were a comedy relief, but like, they were the comedy relief that wasn't over shoved in. They weren't gargoyles. They weren't.
Oh, and the movie had some pretty nice humor in it just by itself.
Yeah, it did.
It was
so. Let's see. Let's start at the beginning. So I mean, you guys, I'm assuming most of you who are listening to this would know what the story of Moses is.
But we're going to talk about the Prince of Egypt's take on it, and we're going to kind of piece together. Now, overall, I would say that the movie keeps the spirit of...
That's what they went for. Yeah.
Yes, but there were some changes that they made from the original story, and we're going to kind of go over those.
I think the thing they did, which I was like really appreciative of, is the very beginning they said, this is a movie based off the Exodus, the book of Exodus, which is a cornerstone, a pivotal point in Jewish history. And I mean, Christian history too, but you know, that's like the Old Testament. Like, this is like...
Because what people don't sometimes forget is Jewish history is also Christian history, because Christianity is a...
But, like, it's this pivotal point with the Passover and the eventual Ten Commandments and the freedom of God's people and all that. They're like, we have taken some artistic liberties with the story to make it, you know, a movie. But their goal was to keep the heart of the story, the theme of the story, and I think that's where it really glows. It puts such humanity in the story.
Oh yeah.
The struggles of
all
the pressures of the Egyptians, like of the Pharaoh, and then the pressure of having God be like, hey, go walk into Pharaoh's court and be like, hey, do this thing, you know? Like, demand their workforce, you know? Like...
It was really good. So let's, so we start out, the movie starts off with actually the scene, with the scene of the Israelites working, and they've got this really beautiful song, and I'm probably going to spend most of this podcast gushing over the art.
Well, the song literally starts out with about how they're working, you know, mud,
and
hay,
and
then they sing about how they've been praying to God to answer their prayers, and they haven't had any prayers answered for their plot in life, and then it just beautifully transitions over to where the slaves are kept. They're slums. And like I just pointed out, well, he sent the soldiers when all the men were away. He sends the soldiers in to so the soldiers are going through, and there's music playing, and it's transitioned the song perfectly, and you start hearing Moses' mother, which I think they say there's a name for her in the Bible. She has a name, but I'm pretty sure
she does,
sneaking around with a baby and her two older children, because Pharaoh soldiers are taking the babies, and anyone under two and younger? I think
in their depiction it was
infants.
It was infants. In the biblical depiction, so in the Bible, it actually says that he had the midwives. He wanted the midwives to take the babies as soon as they were born.
Yeah, no, but there was an age limit. Like it wasn't just babies. It was all the way up to like 2 years old, wasn't it?
Nope, it was just the babies.
That must be later on. I think that's what Herod did.
Yeah,
I think that's what Herod did. Sorry, there's several times when the rulers went and decided to murder
children. Yeah.
So it's hard to piece it all together when you have a reoccurring theme of leaders getting scared of the Jewish people for one reason or another and murdering their children.
Well, in the Bible, it actually says that the ruler that started this, the Pharaoh that started this, he was literally, it said that
he didn't know.
These Hebrews have grown too numerous, and if we go to war, they might side with our enemies and destroy us from the inside.
Well, there's one running theory with all this was that, like, they were slaves, but not the slaves in how we would picture slaves. They were, like, just second-class citizens. So they still had soldiers. They still had a kind of government within there, which makes sense when you think about that they still had their own culture and religion. So that there was this fear that they were almost like a city within a city.
Yeah.
So there was that fear, like, there's that as they were dissecting Egyptian culture and how they handled things like this. But I pointed out, like, because there's one of the running themes with this is modern things that people say this didn't happen was because the Egyptians don't have any records of it, and they kind of recorded everything. But I also point out that rulers make things that make them look bad go away.
Yeah.
So they did not put this on their walls.
Which is something that is kind of unique about the Bible, is because the Bible, they keep all the stuff in.
Yeah.
Like David looks super bad in parts of the Bible, and he was like the favorite king.
God's poster child, for a lot of things.
But yeah.
Growing up, like as a child, you hear all the good stories about David, and then you read, and you're like, wow, David was a very flawed person with a lot of power.
Yeah.
So
I can't find her name. I know it's in here. I was looking, but it's
I
fine.
could look if I probably.
What's interesting about the biblical depiction of the killing of these children is, so Pharaoh first went to the midwives and said, as soon as the babies are born, spirit them away and kill them. Just immediately. And
like the same midwives do, right?
And
kill
the midwives...
babies.
And the midwives were like, sure, we will totally do that thing that you told us to do. And they didn't do the thing.
Well, first off, these are not Egyptian midwives. These
were Egyptian midwives. Yeah.
Really? Or I think they'd be Hebrew midwives.
Well, I don't think they were Hebrew midwives, because the Bible makes it kind of a distinction, because when they didn't do this, they went to, Pharaoh was like, why didn't you do this? He says, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive.
They lied.
Yeah. They're like, I don't know what to tell you,
also,
Pharaoh, but they just popped that baby out.
I'm 99% sure they did not want Egyptian women in there helping them give birth, because they have their own birth customs and rules that are handed, like, they have rules. Now, the rules aren't quite here yet, because it's before Moses and all that, but I'm saying there's this cleanliness difference.
There is, but remember the Israelites had been living in Egypt for
That's true.
a bit.
400 years?
Yeah, so that might have been one of those things that they kind of let go.
Yeah, I gotta remember this is pre Leviticus and pre all the billion rules they get. So like all they really knew is from what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob stuff. Yeah.
So,
like we're in the middle. We're after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, before Exodus, like later on, wandering around the desert,
Sinai, Mount
Sinai.
Yep.
So, like, I keep thinking they have these rules that they don't have yet, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. Like these people are descendants of these nomadic tribes, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, and then they've been in Egypt because of Joseph and Technicolor Coat. That one exactly. The play.
That play. Yes.
That's what we should do sometime.
With Elvis Pharaoh.
We need to do that one.
Oh my goodness. Anyways.
So they have these teachings, like, they do have some, because they did do some sacrifices. God had them do some sacrifices, but there wasn't this strict doctrine yet, other than what these simple rules God had given the first three.
I feel like, and Pastor Hink pointed this out in one of his, Pastor Hink is our local pastor. He was like, a lot of the rules that God had to give to the Hebrews was to retrain them, because they had gotten into a different culture and a different way of doing things
for 400 years without an answer from God,
and they'd been slaves.
It was slaves for 400 years.
So he had to retrain.
Wasn't it slaves was it 400 years of slavery, or was it 400 years in Egypt?
I'd have to look more. Anyways, so after the midwives basically tell Pharaoh, I don't know what to tell you. The Hebrews can just, give birth like lightning quick. I don't, yeah.
I think they figured it out how long they were there, because you can,
genealogy, because the Hebrews were very good at keeping genealogies.
Like the new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, I like how they said that, came to power.
Yep. God actually blessed these midwives because they had basically helped the Hebrews out. So after that happened, Pharaoh's like, all right, fine, I'm going to send my soldiers. And you actually asked the question, because there's a part in the movie that shows a mural.
We haven't read the story yet.
Yeah.
We've read the story of Moses many times, but we didn't refresh our brains before we should have.
We should have, yeah. Oh, well. There was that mural of them throwing babies to the crocodiles, and you asked, did they really do that? And apparently, yeah. That was how they were killing the babies, is they were throwing them into the Nile.
Yeah, that's why I thought that was accurate.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It's sad.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. It's one thing when, like, it's terrifying if the soldier comes in, like they had the scene where the soldier came in. You see him reveal, like, a baby a bassinet, yeah. Bassinet. It's, like, on the ground. And you just see him raise his sword, and then it cuts away in the movie. Yeah. Which is implying he just, there's other scenes where they're just, like, pulling babies out of... Oh, they didn't show... I think they did it very well not showing such a graphic thing in the normal animation. They showed it later on in the vision. Yeah. But that was such style... Yeah. Anyway, so mom is running with her children, and she's singing this beautiful song, and it starts out in Hebrew, and it eventually ends up in English, and it just makes me, my eyes, like, that movie makes my eyes water the whole time with just emotion. And then she puts the baby in the basket, sings this beautiful little song, and then she pushes the baby into the water. And then you point out how she was singing to the Nile at one point, asking the Nile to carry the baby safely.
Yeah.
And you were pointing out that's kind of like what would happen, you know, how, since there's this mixing of cultures, yeah, they believed in God, right? But there's that worship, the other worship, which I don't think the movie was intending to do, like, point out at that. I don't know. I feel like that's just makes sense. Yeah, I just don't feel like that was like the art direction was like, hey, let's have her scene to the Nile to show how the Hebrews and the Egyptians cultures have kind of mixed here, and how some of the other god stuff has. I don't really think they thought that hard on it. They thought really hard on this movie in a lot of ways, but not probably that hard.
Probably not.
But it was a good thing to point out.
I think so, yeah. So the baby goes through a water ride that would make any theme park jealous.
I was like, that baby's so dead the whole time.
Like,
I'm like, that's a well-made basket.
Yeah, and you pointed out...
she layered the basket with, like, waterproof stuff. It tells you how she made...
Both pitch and tar. Like,
yeah, she made a boat.
Yeah.
She made a mini boat.
Mini boat.
And then the sister was following. They had her following in the...
Yeah.
She was our what is
surrogate?
It? Surrogate.
Yeah. And yeah, you pointed out, I was like, yeah, the only way that baby got there is because God was, like, protecting that, because there's, like, hippos and boats and all this other traffic. Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Well, now it's the lifeblood of Egypt, so it makes sense that it was very busy. I like the scene. There's like a scene with the baskets going, and you see all these fish kind of following the basket. And I was kind of like saying that's like God's hand pushing the basket. And then the crocodile came in. I was like, I don't think that might not be quite God's. I mean,
it survived.
Yeah, it's true. But it's just like the crocodile was like, hey, what's that? And I was like,
so eventually Moses' basket finds its way in the movie to Pharaoh's wife.
Yes. The queen.
The queen. However, in the Bible, it's actually Pharaoh's daughter.
Yeah.
So Moses, if he was adopted by his daughter, it would have been raised as, I guess...
He would have been raised as a grandchild.
So not a child. So it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
I mean, she wanted the baby. She was like, hey, I found this baby and I want it. So in the Bible, right? And then she's like, but I don't have anyone to nurse the baby.
I also want to point out this.
The ball's on the little girl though, the sister, who's just like, hey, I'm just happened to be here in your area.
Oh yeah, I was just going to point that out. So I want to point out that Moses' sister was crafty, because like she's watching this baby come in. This didn't happen in the movie. This is the biblical account. And like she finds Pharaoh's daughter finds this baby, and she just comes out like she's just one of the many, servants or whatever. It's like, hey, do you want me to go find somebody that can nurse this child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Right, I know just the person. Goes off and gets his mom.
So the mom gets it. And nursing, I pointed that out, nursing in that time is not because most people just nurse for a year.
Yeah.
If they're able to breastfeed, they nurse for a year. Mm-hmm. And then usually you kind of transition into solids.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that, first off. But back then, you nursed for much longer. You could nurse up to 3-4 years, because it was just a free food. Well, not free food source, but an easier food source.
And what was funny is not only did Moses' mother get to spend more time with her child, save her child, spend time with her child, but Pharaoh's daughter paid her.
Yeah, she got paid.
Yeah,
the slave got paid.
It's.
But they chose a different direction from the movie because this is good drama to have it be the queen. Yep. And the queen to have a 2-year-old, a 2-year-old baby boy.
Because he was toddling around. Yeah,
Ramses.
Whatever.
Ramesses. No, I don't know. Anyway, and she's like, oh yeah, baby. And then she's like, it's like, let's go show Pharaoh this baby I found. Yep. I'm sure he was thrilled. Just like my wife is picking up random slave babies. And his sister Marion, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Marion's like, well, you have been saved by God.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's your job to save us. Like, she kind of put the prophecy out there, kind of like, maybe you'll deliver us because now you're in this position of power. In the movie, he is raised to not know his heritage.
Yes.
But he knew his heritage in the Bible.
He did.
There's no way he would have not.
It specifically says that he did.
He would not. He was only a grandchild of probably many, so he didn't have. He probably wasn't. I don't know Egyptian stuff as well. I'm gonna he was obviously held to a standard because later on when he has to run.
Right, and we're getting to there. Anyway, so the movie now cuts to Moses and Ramesses, much older, and they're getting into shenanigans.
Well, apparently that's what they've done their whole life.
Yeah,
it's they've
just
kind of
shenanigans.
Moses starts the shenanigans with Ramesses, and then Ramesses gets in trouble for it because he's the actual heir.
Yeah.
Also, Patrick Stewart voices the Pharaoh, which is sorry, I was thinking about how well the Pharaoh's face is animated in that. All their faces are really animated really well, but Pharaoh actually looks like an older guy.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like very beautiful. At least the leads are very beautiful. So they're shenaniganing, they're chariot racing, and they're kind of establishing their dynamic and chemistry as brothers.
Yep.
Which they do. They get like 10, we get like 10 minutes with this, right? Yeah. Maybe less? No. So it's like chariot race, gets in trouble. Because they dumped a bunch of sand into the temple and killed a bunch of people. They don't talk about it. And
those people are dead.
There's so much sand just washed over the priests and like the Egyptian priests, and like they live. And I'm just like, no. Anyway, it's funny because the Egyptian priests are played by comedians, and they get yelled at. Well, Ramesses gets yelled at.
Yeah.
Moses basically gets, you're just a baby brother. You're not important. It's okay. You should know better, older child. Talk about, like, favoritism.
Yeah.
But, like, the reverse kind. Like, you don't want to be the favorite, basically. So, there's more, there's a talk later on, and Moses pushes for Pharaoh giving his brother a chance at responsibility, and this chemistry and this family dynamic you see between the queen, the pharaoh, and like there's this dynamic they build very quickly and very well.
Yes, very, very well. And I
like you kind of care, even though the pharaoh's a terrible person.
Yeah.
He does love his sons.
Yeah.
And like it's that reflection that these horrible people are human with emotions and attachments. He's not a psychopath. He's a man, as he put it, made hard choices for his kingdom, which are not good choices and not right choices.
Right, but
he felt like they were just slaves.
Yeah.
So
continue. They go to this. They have this party that they have to go to.
And then the prince gets.
He gets made Prince Regent or something like that. He makes Moses chief architect, and
I'm sure he's qualified.
Yeah, I'm sure. We then meet Moses's wife to be. Now, in the biblical story, we don't meet this woman until
after he runs away.
But here, for whatever reason, they wanted to set her up early in this.
Well, they set her up early to show the difference in the brothers when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, Ramesses was like, yeah, you have her. Like, she was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, Moses was like, yeah, haha, this is fun. And then
he gets there.
And he sees her in the water, and the way she looks at him, he's smiling. He looks back at his mom, and his mom looks so disappointed. And you're like, what is that about? Like, what? There's a scene that there's nothing exchanged other than she thinks he's being cruel.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of funny, like, what are you doing calling him out for being cruel? Have you seen what your husband did? Have you, there's cruelty all around you. Why do you care how he's treating this random slave girl not even slave girl, this Mennonite girl, as they called her, right?
Yeah, from Midian.
Later on when we meet Ramesses, when he's Pharaoh, he is different. You think about it? He has this, I am Pharaoh now. Yeah. I am above all of you, but Ramesses wasn't quite there yet. He was still pretty human. Yeah. So she escapes. And he helps her escape.
Yep.
Because, it's kind of a mature thing. Like, Ramesses was like, you have her. Okay, send her to my room. Like, they that was implying that she was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like he had no intention. Like he got there and he was gonna either let her go or talk to her or something, but she had already escaped.
Yeah.
And kind of a funny scene with that, with like the servant. It was tied up perfectly to look like a feminine body. And he chases her. He doesn't chase her. He helps her escape. And then I think he wanted to make sure she got out.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was trying to talk to her and try to catch up with her, but I think he was just making sure she got out of the city.
Yep.
So he followed her and she smartly went to the slums to get water.
Yep.
Because she wouldn't stand out as bad there.
Mm-hmm.
And she would get help because the Hebrew people were more willing to help each other, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then she gets water and leaves, and then he's like running after her going, oh, there she goes. And, well, coincidentally.
Yeah, he runs into his brother and sister.
That he doesn't know his brother's sister.
Yeah.
Aaron and Marion.
Yep. And Marion's all like, it's you. And Aaron's just like, get the house.
Poor Aaron. He's just like so spazzed. Like he's so freaked out.
Again.
Constantly just.
Jeff Goldblum.
Also, he's like, well, no, but he's the eldest. He's older than Moses. He's the eldest son. Mm-hmm. This is his family. We don't see the mother again. Obviously, she's gone. She's dead.
Or whatever, yeah.
So he's in charge.
Yeah.
And this is during a time when men are in charge.
Yep.
So, and Marion's like, got that sass she had when she was a child from like biblical Bible version, like, hey, look at me, I'm a servant, like. Yeah. And she's just like, no, Moses, it's you. It's him, Aaron. It's him. And Aaron's just like, he doesn't know. Can't you tell he doesn't know?
Read the room, girl. Read the room.
Read the room. And she's just like, no, he's going to save us. Doesn't he know? And she's just so... That's how she is during the whole movie, by the way. She's just literally like carrying them through the whole movie. And
so, obviously Moses is like, what are you talking about? You crazy. And he gets really mad. And he storms off. And then Marion starts singing the song that their mother sang when she was putting him in the basket, which...
He was like 4 months old, 5 months, maybe?
Whatever.
But I think it's also... You could say it's a God thing.
Yeah, it could be a God thing, yeah.
Like, there's something too familiar. There was someone that was so familiar there that he went, wait, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
So he goes home and he sings a song called This Is My Home.
Yeah.
Which they reprised later when the home was being destroyed by the plague.
Yes, yes.
This is my home and I'm destroying it.
It was so good.
Anyway. It was like so good.
So good.
He ends up wandering around the
temples.
No, it wasn't even a temple. It was just like that palace.
Yeah, because that was also like their library. Apparently,
and he
put all their history on the walls.
Like he's reminiscing. He's like, "This is my home. I know everything. I'm out here." Apparently, he's never gone
to this one
wall of death.
Yeah,
where they're dumping babies into the Nile.
Yeah,
right.
Why they decide to record that is beyond me.
Well, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I feel like if they really considered them, like they're just slaves, they wouldn't feel like it was bad.
Or that this was a legitimate threat that this...
Yeah, look at me. I've conquered the Hebrews. I put them down. Like, they're in their place.
Yeah.
Look how great I am. Which is a very Egyptian... Like, that's what they did all the time. Like, one Egyptian would take... Like, a new pharaoh would take over. Yeah. And they would go around and tear down all the other pharaoh statues.
Yeah.
So, like...
It was
a keen thing to do. Pharaoh, king, ruler.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you want to be cool, you get rid of it's like when we talked about the popes and
that one guy
who put the other pope on trial who was dead. So let's see. So he has his vision.
Yeah, he has his vision. And oh my goodness, this was so well animated. This whole dream sequence is basically showing Pharaoh sending his men out to kill these babies. But the whole thing is done in the art style of the murals.
Of the Egyptian...
Hieroglyphics. Yeah, and it's just...
Like, they respect the rules of the 2D element of it.
Oh, it's...
Of, like, the side face only, the way they walked. Like, the way they actually showed, like, the soldiers grabbing women and pulling babies out of their arms.
And it was so cool because when they went... Because it was clear that it was still supposed to be on the mural. So when they... there was one point where they were hiding, so what they did is they went around the pillar of the structure of the palace or whatever they were in, and that's where they hid, is around there. So they used the art to...
Yeah, they used the landscape, the wall.
Yeah.
It's a very good scene.
So good.
It's also like he watches basically this hieroglyphic mother and children as she sneaks around and puts him in the water, and he sees this scene and realizes that baby's him.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming this is like a God-given vision, right?
Yeah.
He's having a vision from God in this scene. And then later on gets chased by soldiers.
Yep.
Off the cliff into the Nile where the babies are being thrown, and that's where he ends up standing and comes out of it at.
Yeah, wakes up.
And then the Pharaoh shows up, and it's just like, he's like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me who I was? He's like, you're our son. I love you. You're mine. And then he says, they were just slaves.
I know, this was a point.
Like, he was so, like, he had him.
Yeah.
He had him. He had convinced Moses that he belonged. And then he had to say that one last thing.
Oh, and this is why I was so glad that they cast Patrick Stewart, because you have this, Grandpa Patrick Stewart, just comforting.
He has such a comforting voice, right?
And then just with one line, you see the other side, like just that one line, he was able to get just this thing of menace in there that you just instantly, like, you were like lulled into this, like, oh, this is not such a bad person, and then with one line you just get snapped out of it, like
he's literally hugging Moses, and he goes, and he just, like, after he comforted him, hugs Moses, and Moses hugs back, and he goes,
after all, they were only slaves.
And Moses steps back, and you just see this look on his face. So the facial animation in this movie does not pull punches. Like, they work really hard to express so much with just the facial expressions.
Yeah.
Like, watch the movie, like, watch Ramesses' face later on, Moses' face during certain scenes. There's just this, there's so many words said without any words said. And and he literally runs into the shadows.
Yep.
Like, the scene ends with him just, like, running away from his dad.
Yep.
Like, well, the man I called father, as you put it. So he runs, and like now he has this information, right?
Yeah.
And this is why they did it in the movie, obviously. Why they didn't just do like 100% biblical accuracy, because where's the other than doing what the Ten Commandments movie did, like, where's the drama?
Yeah.
You know, this turmoil. This is his family.
Yeah.
And now he has this new information. And now, are they his family?
Yeah.
And then he also has a scene with his mother later on, and she's much better at comforting him.
Yes, much
She comes in, and she's just like, I love you, you're my son. You know, we didn't tell you because we didn't want to confuse you, and all of the stuff. And he's all like, oh, my mom's great, because she's pretty great. Other than, using slaves. And,
yeah.
Awkward.
So then he basically has to go to his first day of work.
Yep.
So he meets Ramesses out at the site of where they had their kerfuffle with the chariot racing and dumping hundreds of tons of sand.
Tons. Tons.
Apparently killing nobody because, sure, why not?
They're fine.
And so he's out there, and Ramesses has this grand idea to expand the temple, make it better. And Moses sees a slave getting whipped.
Like, he's just getting yelled at. He's like, the slave is being berated by one of the slave masters.
The overseer.
Just, like, whipping him. Get up, da, da. Like, not giving this guy a chance to even do what he should do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just overbearing, right? Yeah. And Marion's there delivering water to the slaves.
Yeah,
and she's all
screaming.
like, we should do something.
Yeah.
Because she's the only one that has any goal to do anything. Like, everyone else is just so subdued. Yeah. The men are subdued.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. They're the ones working. They're the ones doing the super hard labor. The women do labor, but not as the same labor as the men would have.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Also, a lot of times, inspirations for change usually starts in the women anyway. Yeah. If you notice. A lot of times in history, it's the women who are pushing. So she's yelling, and so Moses is like, hey! And now they kind of sugarcoat this because didn't Moses just get mad?
So, not only did he get mad, if we look
biblically,
biblically,
this is what happens.
This is literally what happens. Okay, I'm going to read it. This is Exodus 2, verse 11 and 12. One day, after Moses had grown up, he went out where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Looking this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian.
Oh my goodness.
And hid his body in the sand.
That's premeditated. That's not even like, oopsie. That's literally like, no one's looking. murder.
Yeah, that
Like,
is
okay.
that is so much worse than I remember.
Yeah, running theme for Moses, he has a temper.
He does.
Like, biblically, he has a terrible temper.
Yeah.
And it gets him in trouble so many times, like, throughout the story.
Like, he doesn't even get to, like,
No.
he gets to see the promised land, but he doesn't get to enter it.
That's because he got mad and hit the stick on the rock.
Yeah.
When God, and basically used God's power without his permission, basically.
To be fair.
Yeah, well,
Moses dealt with a lot of crap.
No. We all know that once they got delivered out of Egypt, the Israelites never ever whined again. They were perfect people who did everything they were told by Moses.
It was rough times for that man.
So let's see. So he's like, "Hey, don't do that! Hey, stop!" And like pushes him.
Yeah, he
He tripped. He was trying to grab him.
Yeah.
And he pushed him, and he falls off this scaffolding and dies.
Yeah, that's the movie.
That's the movie.
The biblical one is he literally like, no one's around.
Yeah.
Time to murder.
And I think he definitely was doing it because he was tired of seeing his people.
Yes.
But it was not the way to do it.
It was not an accident. It was
killing one of the slave masters isn't gonna fix anything. It was just aggression. It was just cruel. Like, it was dark. It was a dark thought. It was a sin. He sinned.
And
like, it was a murder.
Yeah, and in the movie, everyone sees it, and that's why he runs.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if he's the prince or not. The rules say you can't kill an Egyptian, you death or death.
Yeah. In the biblical account, apparently...
Didn't the Hebrew tattle on him?
It doesn't say who told, but they definitely... So, after he kills him, like a day or two later, he sees these other two Hebrews fighting, and he goes up to try to break up the fight, and the one that I guess started the fight is like, who are you to tell me what to do? What, you're gonna kill me like you killed that Egyptian? And Moses is like, oh no!
It's like, maybe, because there were other people around, there was the Hebrew he was beating up.
Yeah.
Like, the Hebrews knew.
Yeah.
So he runs away.
And this is
there's
another
a scene between him and Ramses.
And this is another one where you're talking about the faces where so much of the chemistry between Ramses and Moses is actually established through just non-verbal facial features, because Moses is running and you see this anguish on Moses' face that he knows he can't stay. And this anguish, this just is pleading.
Because Ramses is like, I have the power to make this go away.
Yeah.
Just stay. I can fix everything.
Yeah.
He's already got that whole,
yeah.
I'm future Pharaoh. My word is law.
Yeah.
So, and then he could control everybody else but his brother.
Yep.
I think that's kind of what it also was. He never could control Moses.
Yep.
And there was a love and hate for that.
And there's just this pleading look on Ramses' face. Just this, if you just stay,
and then
everything will be fine. And that's hurt.
Deep, almost anger. This angry hurt. Like, how dare you leave me?
Yeah.
How dare you, because you're my only friend, right? How dare you leave me?
And so Moses goes out into the desert.
He should have died many times.
Many times, but
he gets buried in sand. Apparently, sand is not deadly at all.
Apparently, yeah. I have greatly overestimated the power of sand because apparently can't do jack.
He got into a sandstorm and like his hair sticking out. The camel eats his hair, and it's really gross.
So he gets dragged to this well, and this is actually
he ends up in the land of the Midia.
And this next scene is pretty accurate to the Bible. He comes across these sisters. Mm-hmm. Who are trying to water their camels, I believe. And these shepherds just sort of like elbow their way in and like...
They reversed it in this one then, because the sisters had sheep in the movie.
Okay, maybe it was they were watering the sheep.
Because it was the sisters that was their well for their people's well for their sheep. And then these travelers had come in with their camels and were trying to take water without permission.
Yeah, and Moses drives them off, which that happened in the Bible. What also happened in this Bible is the sisters told their father, and their father was like, well, why didn't you bring him over? We've got to have a feast to reward this. Because that was that's a very Eastern culture thing to do, is you do something for me, I'm going to honor you in some way, and usually food would be involved.
Yes. And lawn parties.
Yes, long parties and lots of food and dancing.
Yeah. Also, this is the same family that he rescued as the girl from in the beginning.
Yes.
So, the older sister who ends up being his wife.
Yep.
So, there's a beautiful song that happens.
I love that song.
He sings about how heaven's eyes.
Yeah.
Right?
And
it's so good. It's talking about how, like, because Moses is like, I've not ever done anything worthy, right?
Yeah.
And he's talking about how we don't see what God sees.
Yeah.
Because we are a string in the tapestry.
Yeah,
we don't realize.
Does a single thread in a tapestry understand? I can't remember the whole line. It's really good.
It's a beautiful song, and it's kind of interesting because we were discussing these people because they're not Hebrew.
They're not, no.
But they are God-fearing. They are God-believing. They believe in the Hebrew God.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's accurate to the Bible. I didn't review it.
I didn't
today.
review that. I read through it, but I didn't pick that.
Okay,
out.
but that's what they. And my theory was.
It just says that he's a priest of Midian, so I'm guessing that these are God-fearing people.
Yes. And I don't know if it's, like, maybe he's a priest, but maybe he wasn't, like, that kind of priest. We don't know. But in the movie, my theory was when the Hebrews left the land, because they left Midian, wasn't it? It was around there.
Yeah, I think so, maybe.
It was, it's a general area. They, when they went to Egypt to survive the famine, they didn't bring everybody. Maybe not everybody went with them.
Yeah.
So these are the people that somehow survived and retained some of the Hebrew traditions through all those years, and that's why they were still. This is just my fan theory for the canon of the movie, not the canon of the Bible. That was my fan theory for why these people had this very Hebrew way of believing in God.
I'm sure that there are some historians that could shed some light, but we are not great historians.
We don't have a ton of time left.
Yep. So anyways,
because we're not even halfway through we are halfway through the movie.
Yeah, we are.
But we have 15 minutes.
Moses marries Jethro's daughter.
Her name. Her name's great. It's a great name.
I am not going to pronounce it because
Why do you?
And he basically kind of settles into his new life and tending sheep, and he's pretty happy until one day he comes across a bush. Now in the Bible, it just says that he comes across this bush that was on fire, which honestly wouldn't be that unusual.
Wait, he did come across a bush on fire.
No, he had to go into this cave.
Oh, he was chasing a lost sheep in the movie.
Yeah,
and then he saw this light, and he's like, "What? Why is there this weird light?" Yeah. And he went to check it out, and there was this bush on fire.
Yep.
And he was like, he puts his hand in it, he touches it. He's like, "Why is this not hurting me?" And then God starts talking, and he's like, "What? Like, is this a joke?" Like, he's like, I like it because God, like, he's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I am who I am." Yep. And he's like, "What does that even mean?" And then he says, "I am the God of Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I hear the calls of my people," and all this stuff. And then he says, like, "Why would you choose me?" And like, God gets mad. God's like, "Yo, you know who I am?"
Now in the biblical story,
nice.
In the biblical story, like in the movie, Moses, relents, decides to go ahead and follow what God wants him to do a lot quicker than it does in the Bible. Partly, I think, because of runtime.
Oh yeah, they could, and they didn't really want to do the scene where Moses gets mad. Like Moses does something, God is like, "I'm so mad at you, I'm going to kill you." So his wife was like, "No, don't," and like circumcised their son and laid it on Moses' foot.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how that would have translated into a children's movie.
I don't either. I do know that in the Bible, Moses comes up with every excuse under the sun. It's like, "Well, I don't know who you are, so I can't tell him." And God's like, "Oh my, I am who I am. Just tell him I am sent you," which is in Hebrew is Yahweh.
Yeah,
that's what that means. And then he's like, "Well, they won't listen to me.
I'm with you.
I'm with you." It's like, "Well, I've got a speech impediment. You can't send me because I've got a speech impediment." And he's like, "Fine, I'll send your brother Aaron. Just go." And it literally says in the Bible that, like, after a while, it says, and God's anger burned against Moses because he was just so tired of these constant excuses. Yeah. Moses was kind of a mess.
Moses was very stubborn and had anger issues. Yeah. But God chose his people. He doesn't choose perfect people.
No, he does not.
Because he wouldn't find any.
That is very true.
So he goes back, and there's this beautiful scene of him explaining to his wife, and there's no words.
No words.
And she just totally goes from, like, staring at him to, like, sitting down and just, like, shock. And she's like, "How can we even do this?" And he's like, "I don't know, but we're doing it."
Yeah.
And they go back.
Yep.
And she goes with him.
Yep.
Because she's, like, that woman I would not want to fight. Like, that woman could have probably fought the Pharaoh.
She goes back with him in the biblical story too.
Yes.
And also in the biblical story, by this time they had already had a son.
Yeah, that's why, because she circumcises him and lays the circumcision on his foot. Yeah. That poor son is just like, what did I do? So they go back and, oh no, Ramesses is Pharaoh now, and he has a son, which is traumatizing, because you instantly go, oh no. Like, I remember seeing that movie, and I went, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no. Because he's a cute little kid.
Yeah.
And this is the best animated scene in the whole thing. They have the bad guy song. And, that's not the best one. The bad guy song's pretty intimidating.
Well, let's kind of talk about the bad guy scene. So, he goes and he confronts Pharaoh and says, let my people go. Let me show you, I will show you the power of God. And he does the whole staff into a snake thing. And so the bad guy...
The whole time Ramesses thinks this is a joke.
Yeah.
His brother's just joking with him. He's coming home. Ramesses has decided Moses is home. The family's back together. He is excited. Yep. And Moses is he just knows his brother's going to be brokenhearted when he really understands that Moses isn't here for you, boy. He's here to take your workforce away from you and set them free.
Yeah. So the song "Playing with the Big Boys" is all about the priest trying to recreate what Moses did, and it's really interesting because Moses just plop snake, but they have to do this whole theatrical thing.
They're stage magicians. They're not actually wizards or anything. They don't actually have magic. Yeah. Now, I don't know, there is definitely other powers in the Bible that are demonic that people have used to cause things. Like, there's literally, later on, there's the seer and stuff who has actually has something. It
literally says in the Bible that, and this happened, actually 3 of the plagues, the priests were able to, and it says through other means or other magics.
Yeah. They were able to mimic it.
Yeah.
And what the movie did was have them, it's charlatans.
Yeah.
They literally have a flash of light and they suddenly had staffs turn into snakes, but we didn't see the staffs turn into snakes. We saw staffs flash snakes.
Yep.
Which was obviously a handoff.
Yep.
And, but it looks great. The showmanship, they look so much cooler than Moses with his little, trick.
And in the movie, they
kept the snake eating the other 2 snakes, which is biblical.
Yeah.
Which I love that. It's definitely God is more powerful than anything you can do.
Yep.
It's definitely just so good. Later on, him and Moses have a talk, and then Ramesses he hands the ring back to Ramesses that he got given early on, that Moses had kept from him, and Ramesses' face was just sadness, distraught, unbelieving, and then it's just anger.
Yeah.
It's just deep anger. How dare you leave me?
Yeah.
How dare you leave me in my time of need, right? Yep. When I have this power. We could have done great things together. You would have been my confidant. And you come back now with some God I don't know, demanding to take my stuff and hurt, and he has this pressure on him put on by their father to not destroy the traditions. He has the traditions to upheld. He has all these things, and Moses is just coming. It's just, it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. And then, he's like, well then, and then the labor get harder too. He did that.
Yes, he did. In the Bible, it actually does say, specifically what Pharaoh does is he stops, as it puts here, providing the Hebrews with straw to make the bricks. So he basically is like, you still have to make the same number of bricks, but not only do you have to make the bricks, we're not going to get you the straw, so you have to get the straw and make the bricks and make the same quotas.
Yeah. Well, and here all he said was their work doubled. Right?
Well, technically, yeah, that would double your work.
But that's just how he did it. He didn't explain it. And so Moses is going back, and the Hebrews are mad at him, right? Yep. Which makes sense. I think that's also biblical.
That is also biblical.
And then and Marian's like, what are you doing? He's trying, he's back, he's here, he's alive. He went into Pharaoh's court and came out. Hello.
Okay, I found the.
I like how I make Marian so sassy when I talk. Like, hello.
Talking about the snakes, turning the staffs into snakes. In the Bible, it says that the Egyptian magicians also did the same thing by their secret arts. So whether that was trickery or some sort of their own demonic, what should we call it? It's It's
just
unclear.
their forces, whatever powers they had.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he gets the call to go to the river, right, in the movie, and he's like, yells, because Pharaoh's like, time for a boat ride. And so Pharaoh's out on the boat with his son, who's getting magic tricks shown to him by the priests.
Yep.
And Moses yells out, let my people go! And Pharaoh's like, you know what? I'm sick of this. Go get him. Bring him to me. And the soldiers jump in the water to come after him. And he gets commanded by God to put the staff in the water. Because the staff's, like, that's kind of interesting how the staff does it, like, almost. That's where all that.
Actually, the Bible when God is telling him to go, God specifically tells Moses to use the staff in all of the things. Now, here's what's also interesting is in the biblical account of this, it was Aaron that put his staff in the water.
Yeah.
And this is something that's interesting is because
Aaron's useless in the movie.
Yeah.
He's funny, but he's useless.
Yes. Moses kept complaining about, basically trying to come up with all these excuses. So it was Aaron that ended up being sort of the conduit for a lot of the signs.
That doesn't make for a good movie. So
no, it doesn't. So the Nile was, and then they turned the Nile to blood, and
which is like the Nile, as I said, is the heart of Egypt. It's their water, it's their fish, it's their food, it's the way they get around. It's a part of it's their blood, like it's their lifeblood, but not being blood. Right. So I see you have things written here.
I do.
And then it starts the song.
Yes.
The plague song. And your house and your home do.
So the going after the Nile was a big thing. All 10 plagues actually directly attack some key Egyptian gods. Yeah. Basically showing that God is more powerful than
their statues.
And the Nile was a big one. The god of the Nile was Hepit.
Hepit sounds right.
Yeah, Hepit. He was god of the Nile.
Hepit over the Nile and was a water bearer.
Yeah, he was the water bearer for
the rest taking the Nile away, which honestly was like a crazy move. That's a pretty strong first move.
Well, and it literally turned to blood. So the fish couldn't.
Disgusting.
The fish died in the river.
It would congeal.
And it also stunk. It actually says in the Bible that it reeked.
Yeah, well, the fish died.
Yeah.
The crocodiles were probably like, what's going on?
But in the movie and in the biblical story, the priests were able to recreate the phenomenon. So Pharaoh was like...
They dyed some water in the movie. Woo! Yeah, magic god, random Egyptian. He's like, the power of Ra. Yeah, totally water, totally blood. It's just like, he threw some red dust in the water.
And so Pharaoh was like, well... get away here with those parlor tricks.
Yeah.
And he does that in
but then he turned the whole river to blood. It's Pharaoh trying to
yeah, in his mind. And then the next one is frogs. Why
frogs? Why frogs?
Well, because their main fertility goddess, which was it's not Hecate, it's Heket.
Heket, goddess of fertility.
Was the goddess
water renewal. Heket was often depicted with a head of a frog.
Yep.
Okay.
She was associated with frogs because frogs
have lots of babies.
Yeah, it's frogs are, I guess, Egyptian rabbits. I don't know.
Well, I mean frogs lay lots of eggs.
And it was very inconvenient for the Egyptians because this was not just, there's more frogs than normal. There was frogs in, you go to sleep and there'd just be hundreds of frogs in there. Just
you walking on them. Gross.
You'd be walking on. They would jump into your food and everything. It was just. But the Egyptian. Now they don't show this in the movie, but in the Bible, the Egyptian were able to conjure frogs too.
I mean, it's not that hard. Look at here. Don't look over here and just grab some frogs off the floor.
Look, I found frogs. Yeah.
Sorry.
So the next one.
This one's so gross.
So in the biblical story, Aaron takes some dirt from the ground and throws it into the air.
Yeah.
And creates.
So Aaron's
lice.
really MVP of the biblical story.
He is.
Because he's doing he's literally like, okay, I guess I will do this for you, brother. I'll do the thing you could be doing.
Yeah.
And then Moses gets all the credit. Like,
kinda, yeah. But, yeah, it's just, yeah. Anyways, so...
little brothers get everything.
Turns into, some versions say that they turn into lice. Some say that it turns into gnats. Regardless, gross.
Yes.
And it just, like... Not just
Lice
like
are way worse than gnats.
Not just some gnat or some lice. Like it literally talks about that it just coverings.
So like right now we're in the COVID-19 and how everything's shut down.
Yeah.
So we're in a plague kind of thing, right? Think about that, but like one after the other.
Yeah.
Every day, wasn't it? 10 days?
No, there's several times because each time
I always was taught it in days, but that doesn't make any sense when you think about it.
Because in the Bible, a lot of these plagues happened, and then Pharaoh was like, "Fine, if you pray to God to make the plague stop, I'll let your people go."
And then he lied.
And then Pharaoh would Moses would be like, "Okay, God, turn it off."
Turn it off.
God would turn it off. And
hey God, I would like that right now too, please.
And Pharaoh, and he'd go back to Pharaoh, who's like, "JK, dude, I'm not gonna let your people go. Get out of my house." And then another plague would happen. So yeah, that was
I remember that now.
So the turning the dust into lice or gnats, whichever version you want to go with, it was an attack against Geb, which is the Egyptian god of the earth. Mm-hmm. Since Geb was supposed to have power over the earth and the dust of the earth, this was attacking him. Next is the death of the it's flies.
Which is also gross.
Thick black flies.
It's very gross. I've had a fly infestation before. It is very gross.
Do you want to try to pronounce this guy's name?
Capri?
Oh, that was actually pretty easy. Capri, I guess. Is
Capri's son?
Yeah. He was the god of creation as well as the god of the movement of the sun, not of the sun. As well as rebirth.
Capri was
depicted with the head of a fly.
Gross.
Why? I don't know.
Well, I will give it to the Egyptians and their gods. They were not afraid of making their gods ugly.
Yeah. Next was the all of the cattle died.
But it was only the Egyptian cattle, right?
Yep.
The Hebrew cattle were fine.
Yep.
Which also goes back to my theory that the Hebrews were not necessarily like the slaves we picture, like from like our bad history with all that, but like they were like a second class citizen more than anything.
Yeah.
Because they had livestock.
Yes, they did have their own livestock.
They definitely had their own community.
So all of the Egyptian cattle died. This was a attack against Hathor.
Hathor?
Who is the goddess of love and protection. Hathor was often depicted with the head of a cow.
Love and protection. It's okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Next was sores and boils.
Yes.
Those are always fun. This is a direct attack against Isis, goddess of medicine and peace, since Isis was the goddess of medicine.
So if you guys didn't know before the terrorist group messed up with this, Isis was an Egyptian goddess, and she's actually one of the very prominent, well-known one for a long time. There were people who were named Isis who had to change their name because people were like, why are you named after a terrorist group? It's like, no, it's not. Anyway, Isis was married to one of them. I can't remember which one.
Next was hail and storms. This was a attack against Nut, who is the goddess
I read it's Nut, and I knew that was wrong.
Yeah, goddess of the sky.
Also another one I knew.
Since she was the goddess of the sky, also the goddess of weather. This is kind of an obvious attack against
Taking control of the weather. Yeah.
This one I'm not as because all of this information.
Seth, not Seth. It's Seth.
Seth. No, it was Seth.
Seth.
There's Seth and then there's Seth.
Okay.
I don't. So all of this information I got off of a resource on one of the Bible Gateway projects. Mm-hmm. So I'm not entirely sure where this connection is. They're saying that the locust was an attack against Seth, who is the goddess or the god of storms and disorder. I guess because he's from what I understand, he was more of a god to be like you didn't worship him, you appeased him.
Okay.
The
locust came and ate all their crops, so I don't know. Maybe he took crop offerings.
What's interesting about that is the hail destroyed most of their crops.
And then the locusts finished them off.
Yeah, when Pharaoh went through.
I just think the point to remember is Egypt is not recovering from this.
No.
This is everything that Ramesses was meant to do, what his father put on him. This is literally going, you will not be able to keep your traditions.
Well, they built what these traditions as his father wrote on the back of slaves. Yeah. And this was the day of reckoning for them. The next one is there's 3 days of complete darkness.
Yeah.
Complete darkness. Only in the Egyptian parts of the city.
Must look really weird.
Yeah. Like literally you could go
like a black screen on the sky with a hole. It was like a beam of light onto the Hebrews.
Like a lot of depictions I've seen is like there's literally like the border between the Egyptian and the Hebrew parts of the city. It's like here it's light, it's like normal daylight, and here it's like
just blackness,
just darkness.
They cast the darkness spell.
Yeah, right. And that one's kind of an obvious
D&D spell.
It was a attack against Ra. That one's pretty.
Also, attack on the Pharaoh because Pharaoh is Ra incarnate, isn't he? Anyway. And then comes the best and worst scene in the whole movie.
Oh.
When the angel of death, the Passover, when the angel comes down.
The way they depict this is so...
Literally a portal, like a heavenly gate opens, but it's like a kind of wormhole looking thing.
Yeah.
And just these white mistral light just comes out, right? And it glows, and they come out. And I remember, like, because right before this scene happens, Moses approaches Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's in their spot they used to go to his children, because Pharaoh they're screwed.
Yeah.
The Egyptians are screwed. He will never be remembered in history for anything good.
Yeah.
He has been brought very low, right? And so Moses is like, let my people go, and this will stop. And like you see this sadness, this hurt, because Moses doesn't want to hurt Ramesses.
No.
He doesn't want to hurt the Egyptians.
No.
He's like, you're letting all these people suffer when all you have to do is let us go, and it all stops. And like you almost see Pharaoh consider it, and then his son walks in, and he's like, Daddy, isn't that the man who's done all this?
Yeah.
And he's like, you're right.
Yeah, that kid's a little...
No, the kid... What? Okay, coming from the kid point of view,
I know.
this man comes in out of nowhere and starts destroying their lives.
You say this kid, when you first saw him, you're like, oh no, this poor precious little baby. Like the moment I saw this kid, I was like... You're a little crap, aren't you?
Well, he's a prince. He's
like he had that look in his eye.
Every time he's with his father's doting on him.
Yeah.
There's this definite that's his only line in the whole movie.
I know. It's
and like then they see a little bit later the son is standing in front of the depiction. Like apparently it was right there the whole time. I don't know how Moses didn't notice it sooner.
Bugger if I know.
That was a little bit of plot hole. Like suddenly that mural of the babies being thrown to the crocodiles was right there. The son's in front of it, and Moses like Pharaoh's like Ramesses is like, there will be a reckoning for the Hebrews. It'll be way worse than what my father did, but he had the right idea. And then Moses just looks at the son, the little prince, sees the imagery there, and he knows what God has asked him that's bringing next. Yep. And he just, this look of distraught of the death that Ramesses has brought onto his own people.
Yep.
As he goes, and then there's this really somber, like, I don't know if it might not even be music in this scene, right? It's a very quiet scene. As Moses is telling them, take a lamb, the little Bible verse, take this over the door, and then I will pass over.
Yeah.
Thus the Passover. And then there's this scene of them coming out, the light coming out from heaven, and the angel of death, basically. Yeah. It's not an angel, not like we are depicted seeing an angel. It's this force. Yeah. Right? And it goes over, and you see it pass by the doors with the blood, but then when you see it pass by and this is something that I was questioning, but I don't think we have time to go into it now. Yep. Anytime it passed the eldest son of the Egyptian household, you would hear it take their breath away, literally stealing the breath out of them, which is very biblical. Yeah, that's like our life force we are breathed into by God, and now God's taking the breath out of these eldest sons.
Where we get the word spirit. I've said this multiple times in this podcast. In Hebrew, it's the word roha, which is breath. It's also what gets translated as spirit. In Greek, it's translated as pneuma or pneuma. Mm-hmm. Also, where we get the word pneumatic. Mm-hmm. But it's the same word. It's the breath.
The scene is, it's so well done because, like, you were literally seeing children die on screen, but since they die so peacefully, like, one dies in their sleep. It's just, it passes over them.
I think the only one that's kind of like,
dark is when the one bringing the water in, and you hear, and then you see his hand come out the door as he falls, and the plot breaks.
Plot breaks, yeah.
And then
and then, like,
and then Moses goes to the palace.
Well, before that, you hear, because Pharaoh says that there will be a scream, like,
there'll be a cry in
Egypt like no one has ever heard. And, like, after you see this white cloud basically goes back up, you hear all of these like, screams.
It was a really cool scene. It's a very cool scene.
You hear all of these, like, wails coming from, and Pharaoh's right.
Yep.
It just...
And then Moses is there, and Pharaoh's laying his son down, who is dead, and covers him up, and is like, take your people and go.
Yep.
And then we transition to, and it starts out pretty somber. Even, like, they did a good job, but they didn't do, like, look at the keys.
Yeah.
Disney, Bambi's mom was dead. Hey, look, springtime's here, time to boink.
You see the heartbreak in Moses, and he gathers his people, and it just starts, it starts as this like, somber.
They're scared.
They're scared. They don't know what to do.
Their home. They don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
And then they start singing the song. Marianne starts singing her song. And they start singing the song of, I don't know what it goes into Hebrew, so I don't know all the words. But it's this song of, I think, praise.
Yeah. And
then there's even the children seeing it later on. It's really cute. And they're all, like, they show all these people, just so many, just how big the Hebrew population is. Like, they do a really good job showing just hundreds upon hundreds, like, thousands of people.
Yep.
And, like, they show people with almost look like they're from other cultures because of...
You even see some, like, people that I'm pretty sure were Egyptian.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, why wouldn't you go with people with a more powerful God?
Yeah, it's true.
Like, and they took gold. Like, they
oh yeah, it says
it
straight up says in the Bible that that the Hebrews, like, Pharaoh just was like, take our gold, take the silver, take oxen, just get out of here. I don't want to see. No, out.
Did Pharaoh's son die in the Bible too?
Yes.
Did he have a son?
My wife has been dealing with a toothache, which is why this episode might be a little late, because this is Sunday and we are recording it very late. Anyways, so this last play. Well,
my thing is, I don't want to talk about, but did it only target the firstborn children's sons? Or would it have been all the firstborn?
It doesn't really say, because technically Pharaoh would have been the firstborn son.
You don't know that.
Well, I don't know.
We don't know how Egyptian... I know Egyptian lineage for the throne is kind of weird compared to... It's not through the sons, it's through the daughters. It's weird.
Yeah.
So,
but it does say... But that's also
the time period for whatever it is,
It does say that it wasn't just the people. It took
it's animals.
Firstborn of the animals as well. So it probably, the way the verbiage is kind of set up, and it'd be interesting to look at the actual Hebrew. It sounds like it was the firstborn children.
Maybe a play on what the Pharaoh did to the Hebrews
I honestly
years ago.
think that's pretty much what it was.
But, I mean, there's a really good Adventures in Odyssey that does address that, and on the other side of it.
Yeah. Now, the plague of the death of the firstborn son, the resource that I found says this was an attack against Pharaoh himself, because not even Pharaoh's son escaped this. Pharaoh was seen as a god. Yeah. And that was actually super common in those most of ancient
societies
around the Mediterranean and stuff like that. Very, very common. But it could also have been against any number of I think the Egyptians had a whole, like, council of gods to just deal with death, because Anubis wasn't technically the
No, he was a bomber. He changed a few times.
But he was also, like, the judge, too. It was
complicated.
It was weird, but they had a whole, like, thing.
I'm sure we'll get corrected sometime.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So,
but Pharaoh couldn't even keep, like, he was a god of Egypt.
Yeah.
A god incarnate, but he couldn't keep his son from dying from this other god.
Yeah.
I mean, that's... Oof.
I mean, he's over... That's why, you can't bring this guy any lower,
Yeah.
right? So they leave, and it's a beautiful scene of them seeing, and they make it to the ocean, the
Red Sea, yeah.
And they stop there to rest because the tide's in, right? Basically, they can't cross here.
Yeah.
And suddenly they get alerted that, hey, Pharaoh's back with his army coming to wipe them out, because Pharaoh's like, you know what, nah.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's done the whole time. And, I mean, not in the movie, but, you know, like, he's this rage.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we've seen, this rage on this man's face several times during the movie.
Yep.
He's been very good at not exploding. Like,
but I think this exploded. Yeah, he exploded.
This like, what else do I have to lose? Let's kill all the Hebrews.
Yeah. And
so the pillar of fire comes down to block him off, which is an amazing scene.
Yes.
And then he feels the call to put the staff in the water and part the Red Sea. And so he parts the Red Sea, and our son has come in and out through this, so he's watching it with us. And the Red Sea goes, and Rowan, our son, goes, he's a wizard! And I'm like, no, God gave him that power. He's a cleric.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, never mind. I thought
it was funny. What's interesting about this scene is how, like, I thought that they were taking some artistic liberties with this scene as well. No. So the way that they had the sea parted is basically this super strong wind. That's the way it's described in the Bible. Also, the pillar of fire thing, I was like, well, okay, of course they had to put it in here because they wouldn't see it otherwise. No, the pillar of fire, they already had the pillar of cloud by day and the fire by night leading them. But during basically when Pharaoh's army came, the pillar of fire basically stood between them.
I pointed out, like, if I was an Egyptian soldier,
I'd be like, no.
And I rolled up and I was like, a giant pillar of fire from heaven. After everything I've seen this God do to my people, I'd be like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
No. I'm 99%. I'm pretty sure they didn't notice that, like, half of them probably left. I don't know. I guess loyalty is pretty powerful.
Well, it says that at this point, now this is something in the biblical story that I've always had a problem with, and I still am having to wrestle with this in my own heart, because it talks about God hardening not only Pharaoh's heart, but the heart of his
people.
Not all of his people, but like his advisors and basically his staff.
This is our issue with, like, because of free will.
Yeah,
but
I think and part of that might be the way that it was translated and some cultural things that we don't know because we live in a Western culture. But at this point, I think that Pharaoh and these soldiers were because sometimes we are presented with
these soldiers probably lost
evidence.
Sons.
Yeah.
They've lost family from these plagues.
And sometimes we get so entrenched in our own whatever, like our own concerns and stuff, even when given evidence that this action that we're doing is destructive, we still press on. And like, I don't know, I think that because it does specifically say that pretty much all of Pharaoh's army was taken out of this because what happens, as you know,
they stupidly ran into after the Egyptians and then the water came down.
You mean after the Israelites?
Yeah.
Yeah. And because that's if you know anything about the story.
What a trap, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing. It's like,
in here, cats. We're talking.
That is another one of those things was like, Pharaoh would be like, all right, we're going to go into the giant wall of water. We're going into that. Yes. Okay.
And then, like, the chariots all got stuck.
Actually, what's interesting about that, in the Bible, it specifically even says that God jammed their wheels. Like, when they're, like, halfway through.
Am I on the one picturing God, like, sticky, like, pulls into their wheels? Just, like...
I was reading that
when you ride up, like, when your sibling rides by on a bike as a child, you just jam a stick into their bike because you're cruel. I never did that, but I know other people who did.
I didn't do that to my sibling, but I do know that we used to do that to each other in one of the neighborhoods, and you could get some airtime off of that.
Yeah, you also could die. Children survive so much.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Anyway, so this is basically when the movie ends. They get out of the water, and the water comes down and kills all the soldiers except the Pharaoh. because drama. He basically gets pushed out by a big wave.
Yeah, no, he died. He died.
Was he there? Was he there too?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know if he wrote in or not.
Yeah, he did. He came in and he died too.
Yeah. They had him survive because it was kind of like, now you're alone.
Yeah.
You are completely alone. No sun, no people, no soldiers, and he just screams, Moses!
Yeah.
And I didn't age too well.
No.
No! Yeah, well, we have other things to make fun of with it now, which was fine when it came out.
Right.
And then they walk off and they're like, yay, we're free! And then we see a scene of him coming down from the mountain with the
Ten Commandments.
And I went, yep. And I went, then they never messed up ever again.
Yeah. So we were talking about that, and I want to point this out. So in the Bible, when Pharaoh's army is coming down, this is the biblical account, is the people, like, they're not like, but like a couple days of freedom, and they see the first challenge of Pharaoh coming down, and they literally go to Moses and be like, why did you take us? We were better off as slaves.
Yeah, they're already complaining.
And I'm just like reading that, and it's like,
I just want to point out, I think we give the Hebrews so much slack for all their complaining, but we complain all the time. We do. And I think we're just not a group of people who've been exiled from the land they knew, and there's a lot going on. Also, this God God has not been answering their prayers for some time, right? Oh, yeah. And I mean, I guess it's just a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot of emotional turmoil going on.
It really is. And really, we do the exact same thing. Yeah. We do it all the time. Like when we read we're just not
1,000 people on the side of an ocean,
We read about the Hebrews, it's like, why are they doing that? We just gotta think.
How have they already forgotten? All these great things that God has done for them.
And then you go back and you replay events in your own mind, and you're like, oh.
I'm no better.
Oh.
I'm no better than a BC era Hebrew who
I'm
just
sorry.
Want some meat. Sorry, I just want some meat, God. Sorry.
God, I'm sorry. I did that.
We're sick of manna. I want some meat. Sorry,
I say, I guess our conclusion with this is a really good movie.
It's a really good movie.
Really good.
And it's a good intro to, because it doesn't pull its punches.
It doesn't.
But it's also not like gruesome for gruesome's sake. It just doesn't pull its punches. And it's very careful with the material, even the stuff they change. It's very careful.
And I think it's so interesting.
So much
because
love.
So many people were really nervous about this movie when they announced it, because it was DreamWorks. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like one of the major Christian movie places. It was DreamWorks, a secular company, and a lot of people were scared. And then this came out, and they were like,
"It's not so bad. It's good."
Well done. Well done. Good job.
Yeah. So okay.
All right. Well, I think that's all we've got. Thank you for listening to Faith-Filled Nerds. I would like to thank Steve Rue for letting us use his jazz album for our opening and our closing of our show. Please go check out Steve Rue's fantastic piano and musical talent on YouTube, I believe.
He has a few things on YouTube, but he also has things on Amazon. There's a lullaby album that if you want your kids to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
I usually play that from our children. Thank you for listening. And if you like what you hear, please consider leaving us a review. This helps the podcast grow. Also, just word of mouth, telling other people to check us out. Yes, really helps.
Please share with your friends. Please. If you want to contact us directly, you can email us at faithfillednerds@gmail.com. If you have any questions, suggestions, or concerns. If we get enough of these, we might even do enough questions, we might even do a Q&A episode.
We are an opinion podcast, and while we do our research, we do encourage you, listeners, to take a look for yourself at the things we're talking about. Do your own research, do you explore. If we brought up some points that we didn't delve deep enough into, go ahead and look into that yourself, and maybe shoot us an email and correct us on all the things we got wrong. Yep. And always remember that God loves you.
And now for our out of context Bible verse.
Zephaniah 3:7. Of Jerusalem I thought, surely you will fear me and accept correction. Then her place of refuge would be not destroyed, nor all my punishments come upon her. But they were still eager to act corruptly, and all they did. Yeah, it's pretty accurate.
Yep. I'm John Mark.
And I'm Michelle.
And in the words of the immortal Wolfwood, go with God.